Okay, please let's begin with the universal invocation. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. So welcome to all of you, and I welcome Brother Tendulkar ji to begin the session now.
Thank you, madam. Thanks to Pradeep Mahapatra ji also, who is coordinating on behalf of Indian section. This is our third session in this series of lectures on personal counseling from the masters. We have, in the last session, just introduced the letter written by Master K.H. to Miss Francisca Arundel. In this letter, Master is mentioning that he has watched for many days the silent evolution and the yearnings of her inner soul. And this is with the permission that he obtains from her pledge. He goes on and tells her that her loyalty to the cause entitles her to this. So it's a kind of privilege which she gets for the loyalty which she has displayed over a period of time, not only to the master, but to the cause of truth. You know that Miss Francisca was the treasurer of the London Lodge, and she was an active office bearer of the Lodge. This was at the time when the London Lodge was passing through a critical stage, just as at the same time, headquarters at Adyar was also passing through difficult times. These letters are in the nature of personal counseling. And therefore, we will find in these letters, Master's insight into the inner workings of the pupils at the emotional and mental level. It refers to the problems of human relationships also, especially about the struggle which goes on between our personality and individuality. He refers here to her friend, your friend, poor child, and what he says, by placing so constantly her personality over and above her inner and better self, she has done all she could for the last week to sever herself from us forever. So this makes it very clear that as long as our personality dominates, there is very little chance that we will be able to have any communication with the masters. So it is this problem of personality, which is so pure and genuine she is that I am ready to leave a chink in the door she slams unconsciously to herself into her own face. She has unconsciously closed the door. This door is door to the world of the masters. Masters often say that leave your world and come to ours. But where there is dominating personality, one is forced to close this door to the entry of their world. But here one important fact to be noticed is that this closure is not at the end of the master, but by the pupil. So it is the fall of the pupil. But master is so kind and considerate that he says, I will await for the awakening of her honest nature whenever that time comes. Though she has closed the door, master is prepared to wait, simply because she is of honest nature. And for that, he is prepared to wait whenever that time comes. He has not put any time limitation also. See the patience, the sympathy, the kindness which the masters have towards the pupil. He says she is without artifice or malice, entirely truthful and sincere, yet at times quite false to herself. So this is her weakness. At times, she is quite false to herself. So all the good things that she possesses is of no avail when she is not able to remain in touch with her own inner self. As she says, her ways are not our ways. She has a feeling that master's ways are different, nor can she comprehend them. So the problem is of comprehending the ways of the masters. She has not yet understood the ways of the masters. We go by our worldly standard, by our understanding of the human nature, and perhaps expect, as we expect from other ordinary human beings, a response from them. That's why we must try to understand the ways of the masters. Her personality coming in so strong in her ideas of the fitness of things. What is fit, what is unfit, what is right, what is wrong, what is proper, improper. All these matters of discrimination. So personality comes in our ability to discriminate. She cannot certainly understand our acts on our plane of life. So this is the difference of the plane of consciousness at which we live. tell her in all kindness that if HPB, here Master is referring to HPB only as an example, not to particularly describe her nature or her faults or her problems in dealing with her. Therefore, he says, tell her in all kindness that if HPB was wrong last night, is referring to the incident which occurred previous night when there was hot exchange of words and great misunderstanding about HPB. This is because of the preconceived notions, as well as again trying to understand other person from our own self-centered point of view. Therefore, Master says, as she always is, HPB was wrong last night, as she always is, from the Western point of view. Remember, the words are qualified by the Master. He is not calling her wrong, but she appears wrong from the Western point of view. That is what the Master is trying to convey to her. In her everlasting natural impulses, apparently so rude and indelicate, in her natural impulses, HPB appeared to many rude and indelicate. But they failed to understand or appreciate her ways of expression when she was acting at her Master's direct order. It was out of that sincerity and dedication towards her Master that she never bothered about what the other person with whom she was dealing or talking would feel, or what kind of opinion other person will form, or how it would affect the relations between the persons. Master describes further, she never stops one moment to consider the propriety of things when concerned in carrying out such orders. Normally, when we act, we have this thought of propriety of our action. Whether it will be acceptable to other persons or whether it will be in accordance with the prevailing social customs, manners, etiquettes, and all that. But for HPB, those considerations were of no consequence. All that mattered for her was the compliance with the orders of her Master. Master further says, in the eyes of you, the civilized and cultured portion of mankind, he is referring to this Western culture. Therefore, he says, in the eyes of you, the civilized and cultured portion of mankind, it is the one unpardonable sin. But further he adds, in our sight, that is uncultured Asiatics, he is putting himself in the position of an uncultured Asiatic in comparison with the person with whom he is counseling. That in the eyes of Westerner, it was an uncultured, uncivilized act, but in the eyes of uncultured Asiatic, he is referring again this word adjective uncultured by Western standards applied to Asiatics. The same act, which was considered as uncivilized and uncultured, was considered as the greatest virtue. For before it became with her a habit, she used to suffer in her Western nature and perform it as self-sacrifice of her personal reputation. See, this is a process of evolution through which even a great theosophist like HPB has gone. Though now she is acting without considering propriety of things, there was a time in the past when she had a habit of considering these matters. She used to suffer in her Western nature and perform it as self-sacrifice of her personal reputation. That time, the thought of her personal reputation, about her own image, about what the other people will think about herself, all these self-centered thoughts were influencing her. But in the course of time, in the face of her utter dedication in the service of the masters, she was able to give up that kind of habit and suffering, that kind of feeling of self-sacrifice of her personal reputation. She never felt it later on that she is doing any sacrifice, or she was suffering, or her image is getting distorted, or she is inviting disreputation in the eyes of others. Nothing of this kind really affected her. But if she was wrong, was not right either. She was not wrong. She was wrong. She was wrong from one standard and not wrong from other standard. This is the point of view from the cultural standards, values, views, which we apply while dealing with people belonging to other cultures. We expect the same kind of behavior as we expect from persons belonging to our own culture. And this is because we lack in that universal approach of brotherhood while dealing with persons belonging to other groups, social, political, or whatever, other cultures, other religions. Therefore, it is neither wrong nor right as such. It is a relative thing. She allowed her womanly pride and personality, which were entirely out of question, at any rate, out of HPB's thoughts. So these considerations were not there in that evolved HPB. She was never carried away by these feelings of womanly pride and personality, with which generally many ladies suffer, and particularly the one with whom the master was dealing at that particular time. To get mixed up and prime in a question of pure rules and discipline. Those who are occupied with these considerations of womanly pride and personality, they tend to mix up the question of pure rules and discipline with these matters of personality. But HPB never made that mistake of mixing up those things, and were more to be blamed than either of the two. That's why there is no question of blaming anyone as right or wrong. You must remember that both have set themselves voluntarily apart from worldly society. When we are dominated by the worldly standards of manners and behavior, then these problems arise. And to say nothing of the relative decency or indecency of any social custom of any country, there are rules and conduct controlling chelas which cannot be departed from in the slightest degree. So here we are considering behavior of chelas as against behavior of ordinary persons. To chelas, these ordinary worldly standards do not apply. Rules of conduct controlling chelas cannot be departed from in the slightest degree. Master is making it very, very clear that in case of chelas, our outlook is entirely different. I pray you to use your influence with her if you wish her good. So here, Master is appealing Francisca Arundel to use her goodwill, use her influence for good of her friend. Here we should remember the earlier letter which Master had written to Francisca Arundel only, but that time in the capacity of her as the treasurer of the London Lodge. That in that letter, Master had written to her, learn that you may teach, acquire spiritual knowledge and strength, so that weak may lean upon you. Victims of ignorance learn cause and remedy of pain. Make your home center of spiritualizing influence. See, this is the piece of advice which Master has given to Francisca Arunde. She was a great spiritually advanced person. And that's why Master is expecting much more from her. Because her learning will benefit others. That was the confidence Master had. Therefore, the role which she was expected to play was to learn so that you may teach. Acquire spiritual knowledge and strength so that weak persons may lean upon you. There are people who are ignorant. They are victims of ignorance. For them, it is necessary to learn the cause of pain as well as the remedy. And that is the work which is expected from a theosophist like Francisca Arunde. He was further telling her that make your home center of spiritualizing influence. So, her home can become a center of spiritualizing influence. And therefore, naturally, in this letter, he is expecting all those things from her in relation to her friend who had this problem of very strong, dominant personality, which was preventing her from having a link and blessing of the Master, who was so much willing to offer that kind of help to her, but which he couldn't because of this obstructing personality of hers. Here, Master is referring to the conversation on the earlier night of arrival of HPB. There he says to your aged mother who has trodden with you in many stony paths of belief and experience, since your childhood, you owe a great duty. She was her mother, and they had shared many beliefs, many experience since Francisca's early childhood. And therefore, now when she is grown up, Master says that you owe a great duty towards her in her old age. Not a blind and unjust obedience, whose consequences may be most harmful to her as to yourself. So here again, Master very softly, subtly, indirectly suggesting how she can relate herself to her mother. Not a blind and unjust obedience, whose consequences may be most harmful to her as to yourself. So we should not expect blind obedience or unjust obedience, even if the person may be wrong. Person must be himself or herself convinced about one's wrongdoings. To force upon that person to behave in a different manner is not of any help or advantage to that person, nor to the person who tries to enforce that kind of behavior on other person through just blind and unjust obedience. What is expected is a dutiful assiduity and loving help to develop spiritual intuitions and prepare her for the future. So it is not just a question of dealing with a person on a particular occasion and try to solve the problems temporarily. One has to look at it from a long-term point of view. And for that, what is required is to help others, enable others to develop their intuitive capacities, to develop our spiritual intuitions, so that the person can be prepared for the future. One must be able to listen to the whisperings of buddhi to manas. That is what at other place Master has mentioned. If one is able to listen to that whispering of buddhi, then that will open the gate to intuition. And that is a kind of role which is expected from a person who is already on the path, who has to some extent spiritually evolved, and who has developed those intuitive capacities. So it is not only for our own future, but to build the future of other persons that one should work. And that is what is expected by the masters. Many crosses and domestic sorrows have left their bleeding scars on her heart. Master is explaining to Francisca the position of the bleeding scars on the heart of her mother, the domestic sorrows through which she had passed in the past. So naturally, these have their impacts or impressions, scars on the memory, on the emotions, on the thinking of the person. These are the prejudices. And there are preconceptions based on those prejudices. And one who intends to tread the path of spiritual progress must be able to go beyond these preconceptions, prejudices, which condition our mind. We have to have an open mind. She and you have earned happy rewards for your kindness to our messengers. Master is appreciating their kind interaction with messengers of the masters in the past and assures that karma will not forget them. So they have earned good karma also in the past. But look to the future. But that is not enough. Look to the future. See to it that the continual performance of duty under the guidance of a well-developed intuition shall keep the balance well poised. So you have done good things in the past, but it is not enough that we have good karma accumulated in the past. We have to further add to it, maintain it. Otherwise, there is every possibility that we may be influenced by other worldly things. See to it that the continual performance of duty under the guidance of a well-developed intuition, when we are performing our duty in this world, we should be guided by that intuition and not by worldly considerations, priorities, temptations, which have not a long-term value for the future. It is only when our intuition is awake that we can think of future and act for the future. But for that, we have to develop our intuition. Guidance of a well-developed intuition shall keep the balance well poised. Balance is possible only when we are guided by that intuitive insight. If your eyes were opened, you might see such a vista of potential blessings to yourselves and mankind lying in the germ of the present hour's effort. So when we are performing our duty in the present moment, in that we can see the potential blessings for the future, for ourselves as well as for others and for the whole of mankind. But that is possible when our intuition is awake. Then that would fire with joy and zeal your souls. When we perform our duty, then our souls will fire with joy and zeal. Strive towards the light. All of you brave warriors for the truth. Master is calling them as warriors for the truth and advising to move towards the light. Do not let selfishness penetrate into your ranks. This is a cautionary note. Never allow selfishness to penetrate into your ranks, because that throws open all the doors and windows of the inner tabernacle and leaves them unshut. If we are not careful, then we might leave doors and windows open for the external influences to affect our inner tabernacle. But if the intuition is awake, then this will not happen. Therefore, we should always be conscious to ensure that we are guided by that inner whispering of buddhi to manas. That's why in the last session also, Master has said that to H.S. Olcott, do not forget the first impressions that you get. Next moment, they may get colored by your preconceived notions, preconceptions, prejudices. So before that, get a first-hand, fresh view of the impressions that you get. To you personally, child, struggling through darkness to the light, I would say that the path is never closed, but in proportion to one's previous errors, so is it harder to find and to treat. So here we get an indication of what might be obstructing our progress on the spiritual path. Path is never closed, Master assures, but at the same time says that our previous errors determine whether our treading the path, finding the path and treading the path, both will be easier or hard. If we have made many previous errors in the past, then naturally it is difficult to find the path and tread the path. But if in the past we have been careful, vigilant, not to commit those kind of errors and mistakes, our future journey will be quite easier. In the eyes of the masters, no one is ever utterly condemned. This is again an assurance. Masters never consider anyone utterly condemned. As the lost jewel may be recovered from the very depths of the tank's mud. It is like recovering a jewel from the mud. We must recover our Atma, the soul, which is covered by all these bodies, our physical, emotional, mental coverings. Impure they are with our desires, kama manasa and all that. So we have to recover our Atma from all this. So can the most abundant snatch himself from the mire of sin, if only the precious gem of gems, the sparkling germ of the Atma is developed. So we should be always aware of our true nature, our essence, the Atma, gem of gems as he calls it. Each of us must do that for himself. Each can, if he but will and perceive her. So Master assures each one of us that it is possible, but with will and perseverance. We must have that strong will, and we must persevere, continue it without break, without giving up, even in the face of odds and difficulties. Good resolutions are mind-painted pictures of good deeds, fancies, daydreams, whisperings of the buddhi to the manas. Good resolutions, their importance in our life, in our future. They are the mind-painted pictures of good deeds. If today we have good mind-painted pictures, then we can hope to perform good deeds in future. So, fancies, daydreams are the whisperings of the buddhi to the manas. So we should be thoughtful, careful of what appears there as a passing image in the mind. If we encourage them, they will not fade away. So we must repeat those. By repetition, we will strengthen them, so they will not fade away, like the dissolving mirage in the desert. But they grow stronger and stronger until one's whole life becomes the expression and outward proof of the divine motive within. Motive has to express itself in our action. So whatever we do in the external world must be a reflection of that divine motive within. Your acts in the past have been the natural fruit of an unworthy religious ideal. Here, Master is examining the past of the pupil, and he is pointing out to the present as a fruit of that unworthy religious ideal. Here, probably, Master is referring to the exoteric religious practices, which are the deeds which are performed bodily, externally, without much of sincere, honest involvement of thoughts and feelings, perhaps without proper spirit of understanding. So those effects will continue even in future. They cannot be obliterated, or they are indelibly stamped upon the record of karma. We have already created a karma in the past. And how that can be obliterated? By tears? By repentance? Master says no. Neither tears nor repentance can blot the page. We have the pages of the future blank and clean. And we have to ensure that we write messages on those pages, clean messages on those pages. You have the power to more than redeem and balance them by future acts. We can redeem all that we have done in the past and more than balance whatever we have done in the past by our future acts. Around you are acquaintances, friends, and associates in and outside the TS. So here we come back to the advice which Master gave to Francisca in relation to her mother. Around you are acquaintances, friends, and associates. For us, for every theosophist like us, this is the situation. There are those in TS and outside TS who have committed the same and even more grievous faults through the same ignorance. It is the ignorance of the law of karma. That's why we commit mistakes, errors, and we have to face the fruits of those actions in future as they become ripe in time. Show them the dreadful consequences of it. So it is our duty to understand this, realize this, and show it. Show those dreadful consequences of our actions so that we will show them the light, point them to the light, lead them to the path, teach them. And he says, be a missionary of love and charity. This is what is expected, to be a missionary of love and charity. We cannot do much by criticizing somebody, by finding fault with somebody, by being unsympathetic to somebody. We have to accept people as they are. We have to sympathize with them. We have to understand their weaknesses. And we should attempt to strengthen them by making them understand the dreadful consequences of the past actions. so that we can face the present boldly without a feeling of guilt or repentance. That will not help much. So that's why this role of a missionary of love and charity, helping others win your own salvation. This way, we can help others and we can at the same time win our own salvation. There are innumerable pages of your life record still to be written up. Fair and blank they are as yet. So we should pursue our future, those fair and blank pages, and how we are going to write those pages in future. We have perhaps spoiled many pages in the past, but we will not commit the same mistake in future. Child of your race and your age, seize the diamond pane. See how beautifully Master has written. Child of your race and your age, seize the diamond pane and inscribe them with the history of noble deeds. Days well spent, years of holy striving. So, if we act rightly today, we have many better things to write in future in our book of karma. Years of holy striving. So will you win your way ever upward to the higher planes of spiritual consciousness. Fear not, faint not, be faithful to the ideal you can now dimly see. What we are seeing very dimly today. We have to be confident that a day will come when the things will be quite clear to us. We should not be afraid or vague or unclear about the future. We must have that faith and confidence from what we are seeing dimly today. You have much to unlearn. Here again, a great advice, piece of advice. Something, as Krishnamurti says, freedom from the known. We have to unlearn many of the things, wrong things, which we have learned in the past. Wrong habits, which we have acquired in the past. The narrow prejudices of people bind you more than you suspect. So generally we have a tendency to share with other people their narrow prejudices. We are externally influenced by things which are not consistent with our inner urges, with the nature of our Atman. They make you intolerant, as last night he is referring to that incident in presence of HPB, as I described earlier. They make you intolerant of the petty offenses of others against your artificial standards of propriety. We have certain preconceived notions of propriety, but these are artificial standards. These are not the occult standards. These are man-made standards. And against those, we consider the actions of others and find out offenses in their act and behavior, and disposed to lose sight of essentials. And when we are occupied with these artificial standards of propriety, we become blind to the essentials. We lose sight of essentials. We forget essentials. We forget that discriminatory approach of what is essential and what is non-essential. And we give undue importance to non-essentials. And that is a great error we make. You are not yet able to appreciate the difference between inner purity and outer culture. when we are influenced by the outer standards of culture, behavior, etiquette, etc., we forget the inner purity, importance of that inner nature, and we give undue weightage to outer culture. Were the masters to judge you by your own social canons, where would you stand? The very society whose hypocritical rules of propriety you stand for so vehemently is a festering mass of brutishness within a veil of decency. Yes. From their ignorant and malevolent intolerance, you appeal to us because your intuition tells you that they will not accord you justice. Learn then to look at men below the surface and to neither condemn nor trust on appearances. So here we have to develop intuition, then only this is possible. Learn them to look at men below the surface and to neither condemn nor trust on appearances. This is a general tendency. We are carried away by appearances, by outer things, by what is exhibited for impression of others, that image formation, all that should be dropped. We should neither condemn nor trust outer appearances, and we should try to go deeper below the surface and try to find out the essential nature of things, nature of persons we are dealing with. And if we understand that, then we will develop that attitude of acceptance, recognition, consideration, sympathy. Try, child, hope, and accept my blessings. Here, Master is consoling and counseling and advising to try. Hope. This hope is very important. It is given in all capital. Without hope, we cannot really have that bright picture of the future. If we treat the path with that hope which is not shaken by all odd things that happen, difficult circumstances and challenges we face. In the midst of that and in spite of that, we have to maintain hope and we have to continue trying. And for that, Master says, accept my blessings. So masters are always there with their blessings to support us, to strengthen us for our honest effort to develop ourselves and to help others develop spiritually. I think here we complete this later.
Yes.
And I think I have finished the time, or shall I continue?
No, sir, we will stop here. Thank you so much for completing this letter and for being able to join today. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I will now invite Sister Meenakshi ji to give us the translation in Hindi.
Namaste. Thank you, sister. Thank you, brother Tendulkar ji.
Thank you, Meenakshi.
आज हम लेटर नंबर 20 ले रहे हैं, जो कि मास्टर के एज फ्रांसिस्का अरुंडेल को लिखते हैं। मास्टर कहते हैं, आपके अनेक विचारों पर मैंने ध्यान दिया। मैंने आपकी उनके वृद्धि पर ध्यान दिया और आपके अंतरतम की तड़प को देखा और आपके तथा आपके प्रियजनों के बारे में कुछ बातें करने के लिए आपकी प्रतिज्ञा मुझे ऐसा करने दे रही है। आगे मास्टर मिसेस होलोवे के बारे में कहते हैं कि मिसेस एच निम्न स्व के अधीन है, अपने निम्न स्व के अधीन है, फिर भी वह इतनी शुद्ध और सच्ची है कि मैं उस समय का इंतजार करूंगा जब उसके सच्चे स्वभाव की पूर्णतः जागृति होगी। उनके विचारों पर उनका व्यक्तिमत्व यानी निम्न स्व इतना दृढ़ है कि निश्चित ही वह हमारे जीवन तल पर, हमारे चेतना स्तर पर हमारे कार्यों को समझ नहीं सकते हैं। मास्टर फ्रांसिस्का अरुंडेल से कहते हैं कि आप पूरी विनम्रता से उसे यह बताएं कि पाश्चात्य दृष्टिकोण से यदि एचपीबी कल रात गलत थी तो उसने यह सब अपने गुरुदेव के प्रत्यक्ष आदेश पर किया है। जब इस तरह के आदेशों को पूरा करने का संबंध आता है तब वह एक पल के लिए भी कार्य के औचित्य के बारे में विचार नहीं करती है। आप जो मानव जाति के सभ्य और सुसंस्कृतों में से एक है, आपकी नजरों में यह एक अक्षम्य पाप है। हमारी दृष्टि में यानी असंस्कृत एशियाइयों की दृष्टि में यह सबसे बड़ा गुण है। इससे पहले कि यह उसकी आदत बन जाए, एचपीबी अपने पश्चिमी स्वभाव में पीड़ित होती है और इसे वह अपनी व्यक्तिगत प्रतिष्ठा के आत्म बलिदान के रूप में करती है। आपकी बूढ़ी माँ के प्रति आपका बहुत बड़ा कर्तव्य है, जिन्होंने अपने आपके बचपन से ही श्रद्धा और अनुभव के कई पथरीले रास्तों पर, कठिन प्रसंगों पर आपका साथ दिया है। उनके आध्यात्मिक अंतःप्रज्ञा को विकसित करने तथा उन्हें भविष्य के लिए तैयार करने में प्रेम पूर्ण मदद करें। उन्होंने और आपने हमारे मैसेंजर्स के प्रति अपनी दयालुता के लिए अच्छा प्रतिफल अर्जित किया है और कर्म देवता इसे नहीं भूलेंगे। लेकिन भविष्य की ओर देखें, यह ध्यान में रखें कि एक अच्छी तरह से विकसित अंतःप्रज्ञा के मार्गदर्शन में निरंतर कर्तव्यों की पूर्ति से संतुलन अच्छी तरह से बना रहेगा। यदि आपके अंतःचक्षु खुलते तब आप अपने और मानव जाति के लिए संभवनीय आशीर्वादों का एक ऐसा दृश्य देख सकते जो वर्तमान समय के प्रयास के बीज रूप में अंतर्निहित है, जो आपको खुशी और उत्साह से भर देगा। सत्य के लिए लड़ने वाले आप सभी शूरवीरों, प्रकाश की ओर प्रस्थान करने के लिए प्रयास करें, लेकिन अपने में स्वार्थ को प्रवेश न करने दे, क्योंकि यह केवल निस्वार्थता ही है जो अंतरतम के देवालय के सभी द्वार और खिड़कियों को अनावृत करता है और उन्हें खोलता है। अंधकार से प्रकाश की ओर संघर्ष करती हुई बेटी, मैं आपसे व्यक्तिगत रूप से कहूंगा कि यह पथ कभी बंद नहीं होता है, लेकिन आपकी गत त्रुटियों के अनुपात में इसे खोजना और उस पर चलना कठिन होता है। मास्टर की दृष्टि में कोई भी पूर्णतः निंद्य नहीं होता है। जिस प्रकार खोया हुआ गहना कीचड़ भरे तालाब की गहराइयों में से पुनः प्राप्त किया जा सकता है, उसी प्रकार दुष्चरित्र व्यक्ति पाप की दलदल में से स्वयं को उभार सकता है। केवल मौल्यवान रत्नों के रत्न प्रकाशमान आत्मा को उसने विकसित करना होगा। सभी ने इसे स्वयं ही करना चाहिए। प्रबल इच्छा शक्ति और दृढ़ता से यह प्रत्येक को संभव है। अच्छे संकल्प अच्छे कर्मों के मन चित्रित विचार है। कल्पनाएं दिवा स्वप्न है जो बुद्धि की मनस से गुंजन है। आपके आसपास थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी में और उसके बाहर भी परिचित मित्र और सहयोगी हैं, जिन्होंने ऐसे ही अज्ञानता के कारण वैसे ही और उससे भी अधिक गंभीर गलतियां किए हैं। उन्हें इसके भयंकर परिणामों को दर्शाए, उन्हें प्रकाश की ओर इंगित करे, उन्हें मुक्ति मार्ग की ओर ले जाए, उन्हें सिखाए प्रेम और दया भाव के मिशनरी बने। इस प्रकार दूसरों की मदद करके आप अपना उद्धार करेंगे। आपके जीवन किताब के अनगिनत पन्ने अभी और लिखने बाकी हैं। वे साफ और रिक्त हैं। आपकी प्रजाति और युग के आप बच्चे हीरे जड़ित कलम को उठाए और उन पन्नों पर सत्कर्मों से शुद्ध पवित्र प्रयत्नों द्वारा बिताए अच्छे दिनों के इतिहास से भर दे। इस तरह आप आध्यात्मिक चेतना के उच्चतर स्तर में अग्रसर होने में विजयी होंगे। घबराए ना, शिथिल न हो, हतोत्साही न हो। उस ध्येय के प्रति निष्ठावान रहे जिसे अभी आप धुंधले रूप में देख सकते हो। आपको बहुत कुछ भुलाना है। आपके लोगों की संकुचित पूर्वधारणा आपके अनजाने आपको जकड़े हुए है। गत रात जैसे आपके कृत्रिम शिष्टाचार के खिलाफ दूसरों की छोटी मोटी गलतियों के कारण वे आपको असहिष्णु बनाते हैं और महत्वपूर्ण बातों को नजरअंदाज करने में प्रवृत्त करते हैं। आप अभी तक आंतरिक शुद्धता और बाह्य संस्कृति के बीच के अंतर को समझने में सक्षम नहीं है। मनुष्य के अंतरतम को जानना सीखे और ऊपरी दिखावों पर न तो भरोसा करे न निंदा करे। बच्ची प्रयत्न करे, आशावान रहे और मेरे आशीर्वाद ग्रहण करे। थैंक यू। नमस्ते।
Thank you, Meenakshi ji, for giving us this translation. And now, if anybody would like to ask something to Tendulkar sir, you may please unmute yourself and speak. I think there are no questions and we have already passed our time. Anyone would like to add something? Okay, so we have completed this letter today and thank you all for your participation. So we will bring the session to a close with a closing prayer. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Sarvesham Swastirabhavatu Sarvesham Shantirabhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Lokaha Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you all for joining. Namaste. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Tendulkar sir.
They said.
Chan. Very good letter and very useful. Very useful.